So you've probably heard about this massive book, Atomic Habits by James Clear, right? Today, we're going to break down the core ideas from it. We're going to get into the really powerful framework that shows how tiny, everyday changes can lead to some truly remarkable results. All right, let's dive right in by talking about a feeling I know we have all had. You know that feeling when you're putting in all this work, you're going to the gym, you're studying, but you're just not seeing any results? That frustrating plateau where it feels like you're completely stalled. Well, if you've felt that, you are definitely not alone. There's actually a name for this gap between what we expect to happen and what actually happens. It's called the Valley of Disappointment. We think progress should be this nice straight line, but the truth is, the most powerful outcomes are almost always delayed. And this is the crucial point right here. Your effort isn't being wasted, it's being stored. Think of it like potential energy that's just building up and up under the surface. All that work you're doing in the beginning, you can't see it yet, but it's laying this essential foundation for that breakthrough moment to come. So if putting in massive effort doesn't give us those immediate results, what does? Well, the book's answer is surprisingly small. It's all about harnessing the incredible power of compounding. You know, like how interest works with money, but for your habits. Now, get ready for this because the math here is pretty wild. If you get just 1% better each day for a year, you won't be 365% better, you'll be nearly 37 times better by the end of the year. It's these tiny, almost unnoticeable atomic improvements that, when they compound, create this incredible curve of progress. And this quote just illustrates the idea perfectly. It was famously hung on the San Antonio Spurs locker room, and it's about a stonecutter who hammers away at a rock 100 times, and nothing happens. But then, on the 101st blow, the rock splits in two. Now that last hit gets all the credit, but really, it was the accumulation of all those hits that came before it that made the breakthrough even possible. And you might be thinking, okay, that's a nice quote, but does this actually work in the real world? Oh, it does. Just look at the British cycling team. They used this exact idea, what they called the aggregation of marginal gains. They went from being, well, pretty mediocre to absolutely dominating their sport. How? By making tiny 1% improvements in everything you could think of. Redesigned bike seats, better massage gels, you name it. And the results? They were just staggering. Okay, so we get the why, the power of these tiny gains. But what about the how? How do we actually build these habits into our lives? Well, to change them, we first have to understand how they actually work inside our brains. It turns out every single habit you have, good, bad, whatever, it follows this super simple 4-step loop that's running on autopilot in your brain constantly. First, there's a cue or a trigger. That leads to a craving, which motivates a response, the habit itself, and that provides a reward. This little feedback loop is what makes our habits so automatic. And this is where it gets really practical. From that 4-step loop, Clear gives us 4 simple laws we can use to build good habits and, just as importantly, break bad ones. This is the core toolkit for really engineering your own behavior. Law number 1 is to make it obvious. This is all about that first step, the cue. You want to design your environment so the cues for your good habits are just unmissable. For example, you want to play more guitar? Don't leave it in the case in the closet. Put it on a stand right in the middle of your living room. You're basically setting up your space to make the habit the easy, obvious choice. Second, you've got to make it attractive. Look, our habits are driven by cravings, so we need to make our good habits something we actually want to do. A fantastic way to do this is something called temptation bundling. That's where you pair something you need to do with something you want to do. So maybe you only let yourself listen to your absolute favorite podcasts while you're on the treadmill. See? You're linking the chore with the reward. The third law, and this one might be the most powerful, is to make it easy. This is so simple, but so profound. We are fundamentally wired to follow the path of least resistance. So the more friction, the more steps there are between you and a good habit, the less likely you are to do it. Your goal is to just remove that friction until starting feels completely effortless. And we're going to come back to this one in just a second. And finally, law number 4. Make it satisfying. For a habit to really stick, the loop has to end with a feeling of success. This is what tells your brain, hey, that felt good. Let's do that again. Our brains are designed to repeat rewarding experiences. And this doesn't have to be a big deal. Something as simple as just putting a big X on a calendar after you do your habit can give you that immediate little hit of satisfaction that makes your brain want to do it again tomorrow. Now, what's so cool about this system is that it works perfectly in reverse. If you want to break a bad habit, you just invert the laws. Instead of making it obvious, you make it invisible. Instead of attractive, make it unattractive. Instead of easy, make it difficult. And instead of satisfying, you make it unsatisfying. It gives you a clear, actionable game plan for both sides of the coin. Okay, so you have the 4 laws, but where do you even begin? It can feel a little overwhelming. Well, the book has this absolutely brilliant and practical technique that ties right back to that 3rd law: make it easy. And here it is, the 2-minute rule. And listen, this is key. This rule has nothing to do with the results. It's all about mastering the art of just showing up, because that's always the hardest part. The whole point is to make the habit so ridiculously easy to start that you just can't say no. You're not trying to run a marathon, you're just trying to put on your running shoes. So read before bed each night becomes read 1 page. Study for class becomes open my notes. Run 3 miles becomes put on my running shoes. The idea is to make that starting ritual so easy that it becomes automatic. You're creating what the book calls a gateway habit. And once you've started doing the right thing, it's so much easier to just keep going. So it all comes down to this. By focusing on these tiny, almost invisible atomic changes and just mastering the art of showing up, you can build a system that delivers truly remarkable results over time. So the question I'll leave you with is this: what's one small thing you can start today that takes less than 2 minutes? What will your 2 minutes be?